Thanks, everyone. We'll start the webinar now.
Yeah, firstly, thanks to everyone for coming along for this chat. Firstly, for those of you that do not know me, which I think a lot of you will, I'm actually the CEO of Go Hosting. And what a lot of you may be unaware of is the other brand that works under the same as Go Hosting, which is AUIT. And I'm the Managing Director of AUIT. So I'd just like to start because a lot of you will be unaware of those two brands, one of those brands at least, just the relationship between the two of them. Basically, Go Hosting and AUIT are sister companies. We both work out of the same head office, the same office in Canberra, and we both have the same 100% Australian-based team. A lot of you that have signed up have come through Go Hosting, so you have a relationship with Go Hosting, and you'll know that Go Hosting does domain registrations, web hosting, and a range of cloud services. We're a Microsoft Gold partner, and we do a lot of Office 365 setups. AUIT is actually our managed services or our managed IT services brand. What that means is that we become a small business's IT department. For the purposes of this discussion today, the services will be provided, or you will be talking to in the future, hopefully, AUIT about these services. So just so that everyone who knows Go Hosting now knows AUIT. Thank you. So I'm just going to hand you over to Peter Eldon, who is the Director of Sales and Marketing at Access4. Access4 is the company that we're partnering with to help move businesses' communication to the clouds. Over to you, Peter.
Thank you, Steve. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for everyone's time. I will start this by saying that I've been under the weather for the last few days and I've got a really croaky voice and a bit of a cough, so apologies. I'll try and keep that down to a dull raw for everyone. It is good, though, we're talking about unified communications and work from anywhere, that we're able to continue on and do this webinar. Whereas if it was live in person, there was no way to have let me on an aeroplane yesterday, so we probably would have had to have cancelled. So here's a good way of how we can show that UC is allowing the show to go on. So as Steve said, my name is Peter Eldon. I'm a Director of Sales and Marketing at Access4. And what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about the real change in work habits post-COVID. We're going to talk about some of the challenges that are coming forward to businesses around employee satisfaction and customer satisfaction, how they're two connected. We're going to talk about what people want moving forward in their working habits, but then how does a business ensure that that customer experience is kept up to what it was prior to COVID and everyone being in that one environment. We're going to talk about how unified communications, voice available from anywhere and collaboration tools can all help in solving a lot of those problems, and can also open up opportunities that come from this. So a little bit about us. Access4 is a UCaaS vendor. So that's Unified Communications as a Service. I'll talk a little bit more about what that is in a second. We're a channel-only business, and what that means is, we're very good at what we do around the voice and collaboration side, but we only partner with organizations like AUIT and Steve and the team because they really understand the customer's needs and also are supplying a number of other solutions outside of what we do. And so really good at making sure that everything's working together and you're getting the best experience possible. All of our solutions we're built in the cloud. And what that means is we're not now trying to take old technology and push it up to the cloud. This was born and bred in there. All of our support is out of ANZ. Voice services are critical. If you can't get onto someone, or if Steve and his team can't get onto someone when there is a problem, then that's a major issue for everyone. So we make sure that all of our staff work for us and work out of Australia and New Zealand. Excuse me. And we have a number of partners across ANZ. And we're award winning. So this is something we're very proud of, is that the platform that we use as the foundation of our solutions was recognized by our peers as the best in the industry. So before we go on a little bit more, let's make sure we understand what unified communications is and what all this jargon we do use in IT. So unified communications is basically a collection of technologies. So it's things that you're probably using today, things like Zoom we're using right now to have this webinar. It could be Teams you're using to chat and for video and for calls, instant messengers like Teams and Slack, presence, availability, accountability tools. All of these multiple tools are tying together, and they're all brought back into one central point. And I don't mean a central point as in a location, but I mean as in a device. So rather than having this tethered to an old phone system in your office or having to be logged onto the network to be able to get access to files, these are all brought under that one point, be it a laptop or a PC. That means you can take it anywhere. And for that reason, UC is very flexible. It allows you to work anywhere at any time. And as importantly, what people sometimes miss out on is that it's not just internal conversations. This isn't just you chatting to someone you work with in another department or having a video call with someone who you work with. Excuse me, this is actually your external communications as well. So when UC is done properly or really well, you'd have your telephony services coming into it as well. Your 1-800, your 1-300, all your individual extensions are all coming in so that anyone at any time can pick up that laptop off their desk, go work from home, and their extension follow them anywhere. If they were on a IVR, like a call routing, press 1 for admin, and they went home, then UC smart enough to know that and follow them home and put that call through to them and tell the receptionist in the office where they are and when they're on calls or not. So really, really opens up when you start talking about external communications and talking to your customers and your suppliers rather than just keeping it internally. And for that reason, it's very much the modern workplace, and for obvious reasons. But let's talk about what's happened and all the changes have gone through. So to do that, we're going to have a bit of a history lesson, so bear with me. So I don't know if you guys remember, but in the before time, there were these things called offices, and staff used to go to offices every day, 5 days a week, 52 days a year, weeks a year. And because staff go to offices, we used to put all our equipment in there. We'd put our servers, we'd put our phone system, our support people to help our staff look after our customers, and then all the tools that they need, spreadsheets, whatever it is, we'd put it all into the office, ready for our staff to work and look after our customers. And this worked brilliantly, right? Everyone was doing this for as long as we can remember, and it was a really good system, and none of us expected this to change. And then sometime in February 2020, this bad boy turned up and threw all of this on his head, literally overnight. So overnight, we were in a situation where we had all of this critical infrastructure, all these productivity tools, all these customer experience tools sat in an office, and then we had our staff who could not get to them. They were blocked off. And it was amazing. Organizations like Steve and AUIT, they did a brilliant job in those crazy days of February of 2020 in getting organizations up and running in a work from home environment. And I know I'm probably triggering a few of you guys because it wasn't a great time, but we couldn't get toilet paper and we couldn't get video cameras. Not a great combination, but they were the two things we were struggling to get. But I think all of us thought that this was going to be short term, maybe 3 months at best. We'd be working off mobiles and we'd get back to the office and everything would be okay. And what we realized looking back is, that didn't happen, right? It was a long drawn out battle. But also when we look forward now, we see that fundamentally how we work has changed. So, our assumption is we'd go back to that 5 days a week, 100% of the staff in the office. And the reality is that's not going to be the case. And it's particularly not going to be the case in the medium term. So that's why UC, Unified Communications, is really helpful, because what it allows you to do is have all these collaboration tools and all these communication tools that you need to keep your customers happy and keep your staff engaged in the cloud, and make that available regardless if they're working from home or in the office, or more importantly, a combination of the two, which is the reality of what we're seeing now moving forward. No one's going to have an office now or a business that's going to be 100% in working from home. But it's also as unlikely that you're going to have a business that's going to go 100% work from an office. I mean, there are going to be some industries, particularly around manufacturing, like this, clearly couldn't work through COVID and need to be in one place. But for most professional services and most small to medium business, there is going to be a part of the workforce that will work at some point in that week from home. And also then it will also open up opportunities to look at staff who may never come into an office and may not be in the same state or potentially country. We still need to give them access to the same tools to be able to look after our customers. But also as employers, we need to make sure that we have got accountability tools in place to make sure that these guys are engaged and are happy. And that's very much what Unified Communications does, is it takes all those separate tools, so PCs and laptops and phones, and it combines them down to that one device, but it untethers it from an office as well. And it allows you to work anywhere, anytime, and still have the same level of experience, be it as a staff member or for that customer at the other end of the call. They don't know where you are. It doesn't really matter to them. Now, because of this, we're seeing a significant amount of talk about this in the news. We're seeing tons of articles around, how hard it is to hire staff at the moment. I think we're all, if any of you guys have tried to hire staff currently, it's a very tough hiring market. And when there are surveys done to employees around what motivates them, right up there around salary is around flexible work. And so we're seeing that if the staff or organizations that are trying to hire new staff, and we're one of those right now in the midst of this, the first thing, or at least the second thing that I'm asked by potential candidates is around what's our flexible work policies. Am I making them go into an office 5 days a week? So we've got an issue with hiring staff if we're not offering a flexible working arrangement, but you're going to have an issue around retaining staff as well. And that's all well and good. If we just go, right, well, we're going to let you work from home. But if you don't have the tools in place that enable that customer to get the same experience they were doing prior COVID, when everyone was in that one place and had access to everything, then you've got some issues. But you've also got issues with staff as well, because if staff don't feel engaged and those tools don't allow them to connect in, then they're going to be disgruntled as well, as a possibility of losing those. So there's a ton of information we see around, working from home, COVID work, and around that fundamental change in how businesses are operating now in relation to where people work from. So it gives you a little bit of idea of how we're framing this and what we do. So we'll talk a little bit about Access 4 and what we do and how we help in this process. So I'm just going to get my little laser pointer going. There it is. So what Access 4 does is that we take best of breed UC solutions. So we take things like, Zoom that we're on right now. We've got that coming soon. Things like Teams calling. I'm sure a lot of you guys are using Teams for internal chat and also video calls between your offices. Cisco WebEx and BroadSoft, when these are telco grade hosted PBX systems that allow you to move all that telephony from in the office and into the cloud. So we take all the best of breeds of these solutions, because each one of them does something different and does it well. And we combine those into our own award-winning platform, which is called SaaSboss. So complex individual going in, very simple coming out, for Steve and the team to be able to pick the best product for a partner or for a customer and then deliver that seamlessly through. Then on top of that, we take additional services that really help businesses in this work from anywhere environment. Things like call center software that used to be only available for really high-end business, you know, like big call centers for things like insurers and airlines, and make that available for small to medium businesses per user per month, you know, 2 users. And so now what we got the ability to have people work wherever they are. And as a supervisor or as an owner of a business, you can see who's on calls and how long they've been on, who's waiting in your queue to be answered, who needs to go for a break. So that same kind of visibility you would have in an office when you stick your head over the cubicle, you can now have no matter where they are. And then on top of that, we add those hardware equipment as well. So, you know, you might want to use a headset at home, but you might want to have a full phone at office, and you want to have the flexibility of both of those. So we bring that hardware handset, which can allow you to have a receptionist with a full console that shows who's on the red lights and who's on and who's away and, you know, who's on a call at the moment, all the way through to just a headset or a, you know, kind of podcaster microphone that I have to be able to connect into all of these services. And all that's delivered through to Steve and the team at AUIT in a very simple format to look after. But on top of that, what we do is we provide, you know, things like this is carrier grade technology. So it's leading edge, not bleeding edge. We're not practicing on you. Everything around our solutions is self-service. So, you know, one of the things in telco, which isn't very good, is if you want to change something, it's usually a bit of a pain, right? If you want to change the answering point or someone moves extension, you got to ring a guy or a girl and you got to ask them, and maybe a few hours later it'll be done. The beauty of this is because it's UC, number one, it follows you anywhere, right? So you don't need to tell anyone you're going to work from home. The system will find you. But secondly, if you need to add a new employee or something, Steve and the team can do that immediately themselves on the portal. They don't need to ring us. And so it can happen very quickly and very flexibly. The other big one is there's no CapEx in these solutions. So if you remember how you normally buy phone systems, the guy comes in every 3 years, sells you a very large phone system with lots of new features, and he disappears again for another 3 years. We feel that's pretty old fashioned, right? So what we do is ours is a monthly fee per user, and you get the features that you want. And we keep adding to those features, and you just take them as you need. Again, zero touch provisioning. The provisioning of telco can be quite difficult. We spend a lot of time. We've got a great team to make sure that when we bring your numbers across, you're all ported, all your extensions stayed, all those 1-800 numbers you have, they're all safe, and you don't see a interruption to those services. And as I mentioned before, local support, you know, the voice is absolutely critical, and making sure you speak to someone who's invested in our business and cares is really important to us. And another one which I think is really important is this leading tech development. So, excuse me. So what this means is effectively we become your R&D team when it comes to voice. So as new solutions or new technology comes forward, we're always looking at that. We're always adding it to a platform. So again, the call center software, for example, is a really good example of something that used to only be available for really high-end enterprises, and now is very accessible and very reasonable and to be able to put in to small businesses. We've got things like AI and call recording, messages on hold, call routing, you know, where you press 1 for admin, 2 for sales. All of that is available through our R&D, and we keep adding to that as well. That just solves problems for customers. And then further that is the report and analytics. So they're making sure that if you're, say, you do a big marketing campaign, how do you know how successful that is? How many people rang in? Did they ring in on a particular at certain times in a day? Did you lose calls because you don't have enough operators? So really giving you back that business intelligence that allows you to make the right decisions for the business. So what I want to do now is just take a little bit of a deep dive on some of the trends that we're seeing and what's causing those trends and how UC can actually help on that. So, you know, number one is what we've already just spoke about, which is that the workforce is becoming more dispersed. So more people are getting untethered from an office. and it's not going to be many businesses are going to go back 100% of the time, 5 days a week. We're seeing a lot more meetings online. So we're seeing, look at today, right? Allow us to continue on to this rather than having to postpone it because of an illness. And I don't know about you guys, but I would be doing 12 meetings, 14 meetings a day on Teams. So having that integrated into your system, so your phone calls are in there, your extensions. If you're using it that much, you really want those efficiencies of time by having it all under one solution. So employee experience, positive link to customers. This is an interesting one. What we're saying here is, if remote work or a hybrid work environment, if your customer or your staff aren't having a great time of it, your customers probably aren't either. Those two are very much linked. And so the tools that your staff use are the ones that make your customers happier. So the happier they are in using them and the more information they have and the less callbacks they have to make because they've got information, or the harder they are to find, gives a poor customer experience. So you tend to find that the better tools you can give your staff, the more flexibility you give your staff around how they work and where they work, the happier customers you'll get in the outcome of that. And then the other one here is around the change in millennials coming into the workplace. We've got a significant flow of millennials coming in, as a stat I'll show you in a minute. And these guys expect technology to be simple, but they expect it to be everywhere. They want to be able to use it anywhere and have it available. So just further on that, 65% of the workforce is working remotely or is distributed. 63% are doing more meetings, more than 2 hours a day. Mine's significantly more. And then that stat around millennials. So 75% of the workforce, so 3/4 of the workforce, will be millennial by 2025. Now, what's scary around that is 2025's 3 years away, which, I don't know, it seems like 20 years away, but it's not. So, a significant changing in the guard of the people who work in businesses and how they consume technology. Excuse me. And then when we survey some businesses, and we're always talking to businesses around what challenges they see and what keeps them up at night, it's just interesting to see how this connects into what we're seeing around hybrid work. So, the number one on this list was low employee productivity engagement, clearly a result of COVID and people working remotely. And, that's really a big challenge for businesses to solve right now. And it's very much one that UC very much helps with. So, particularly in a tight employment market, keeping customers happy or staff happy is as important as keeping customers. But the flip side, as we've said, is you don't want to just go carte blanche and let people work from home if you don't have the tools to be able to make sure that they are working, and if they don't have the tools to then be able to provide the service that your customers expect. Organizational silos and poor communication. So if your business had a problem with that before COVID, it didn't get better after COVID. And what we mean there by this is, if you've got very rigid departments who don't really talk to each other because they don't have collaboration tools, then that didn't get better when everyone got dispersed. They probably became more inward looking in that time. And what causes that is this fragmented business tools and workflows. So if you've got very separated business tools and software you're using that only one department uses and no one else can see that and they can't collaborate together, then that causes this siloing, and that then leads into that low productivity. So all of those are kind of cascade off each other. And again, so if you look at that final one, whereas if you get tools that are collaborative and work together and have central points as a business for information and sharing, things like Teams do and 365, that can help solve a lot of these problems. And then when we look on the other side of this side is more in-house. This is more customer facing. When we look at these, we see that businesses are worried about competitive pressures on their brand and reputation. And we saw a lot of this through COVID. So we saw that, as I said, of businesses who said, look, just get me up, divert to mobiles, we'll be fine. But the customer experience because of that was really poor. Now, a lot of businesses put up with that. Our customers put up with that through COVID, but their expectation is now that they're going to see a better experience from the back of that. So making sure that if we're offering a hybrid working environment to our staff, that we've got the tools in place to give that customer experience. And what I mean there is, when they ring in, does it matter if an employee is at home at work? Is the system smart enough to find that employee on that handset or that extension and put the call through? And then again, that leads through to that employee retention and satisfaction. If your staff are happy, your customers are probably going to be happy as well, as part of that process. So I just want to talk a little bit now on one particular product, because I'd say a lot of you guys would have some experience on that, and that's around Microsoft Teams. So Teams, I'm sure a lot of you guys would be using. It comes with your 365 license, and you've probably got your Teams Zoom, your Teams video calling, and also some internal chat. Teams is the fastest growing collaboration tool in the world. There's over 180 million active users, and it really is the number one choice for collaboration. And you'll see that from when you also add Teams calling into that, it's a really adds a lot of benefit to a business. And it's mostly because you're already used to that interface. You're already using that for a lot of the internal conversations. So by integrating your business lines directly into Teams really adds another level of productivity, because rather than just collaborating internally, you now open that up to customers. But again, what's good for your staff is your staff are used to using that interface. It already looks familiar with them. And so adding that in, which means they don't need a phone per se on a desk, or they don't need to bring a phone home with them when they go there, but they can still answer external calls, is really powerful. And that's what it does. It extends the functionality of the Microsoft suite and then syncs across all your devices. So you can have, when a Teams call rings or an extension rings, it rings on my mobile, it rings on my laptop, it would ring on a hard phone on my desk as well. And then I can choose how I pick that up. I can then transfer that across. It could start as a call on a phone with an external person, and I could turn that into a video chat or a message and get some information from them as well. So really flexible and powerful on how it works. And it can be a PABX replacement, which is, again, if you're not needing to pay that money out every year to get, or every 3 years to buy a brand new phone system, it tethers you from the office and provides a lot more flexibility. And what we do around Teams is we actually added some additional benefits on it as well. So, Teams as its own, it can be quite basic, but we can give Teams calling with a number of add-on benefits, such as call queuing. So you've got call waiting on there, on-hold music. It can integrate into your CRM. So, when someone rings up to your help desk, it's already realized who that customer is and pop that page up on your respondent, so they're ready to go. You can have call recording in there, which is super important for other businesses. And so what we can do with our services, we can add additional services on top of that, which gives you the best of both worlds. So a really easy collaborative tool like Teams, but with all those power users around, receptionists being able to see who's available, call recording for your call centers, those call analytics that we spoke about as well. So I have spoken an absolute ton there, and I managed to do that with only about 2 cops, which is a bit of a miracle. But at this stage, I'm going to ask Steve to come in, and we're going to go to you guys to see if you have any questions for us. So Steve, are you there?
I certainly am.
Welcome back, mate. So we've got through a ton of information there. So I was remiss to say, guys, if you would like to ask a question, there's a Q&A button. So please just jump into the Q&A and type away, and we will get to your questions. Steve, so you guys provide a fair bit of the 365. So you're already doing a lot of Teams, I'm assuming?
Yeah, so a lot of our with our Go hosting customers, a lot of them are using 365, which would initially be for the email system in 365, which is, I believe it's dominant, just like Teams is becoming. Some customers may be unaware that they even get Teams along with that
Right.
with their licenses, but others will have jumped on and be using it. So part of this is, helping customers to leverage Teams that they've already got, better, and then adding on to that service with, you know, the UCAS, the PABX services, and getting their phones into it will be key.
Yeah. So we have a question here. So Aaron's asking, am I able to see what this looks like? So really good question, Aaron. Yes, Steve and the team can very much give you like a demo, and it can show you what this looks like. And what we can actually do for a lot of customers, because you've already got that Teams deployment in there, as a license, you can actually run a proof of concept. So that in the first instance, Steve and the team can show you what it looks like, and our guys can do that as well and show you as a demo. But if there is further interest, you can actually turn that into a proof of concept and see what it's like to make calls and see how that works. I'm just looking at see what else we've got in there. How many users do we need? Look, honestly, you can go from 2 users or 1 user upwards, and that's for everything that we do. So that, you know, if we think about Teams itself, you know, you could be a one-man band and be using it very much. You know, if you can imagine the cost of a phone system, normally if you were going to put that in, compared to just paying per month per user. But more importantly, all those other services. So the things like the call center analytics, which, you know, if you didn't have less than 50 people, you wouldn't even look at if you're going to do on premise. Now, again, you can do as 2 users, have that software in there, and then expand that out as you need be. I'm just looking at here. Lee says, with the reporting functionality, we have many calls coming through reception line, and then we'd like to know which extensions received the most inquiries the reception person needs to transfer calls to. Helps determine if HR resources are needed in certain sections of business. So really good question, Lee. What that is with the reporting, are we able to see some analytics around how people are engaging us and how are they dialing in, the likes? And the answer is yes, absolutely. So there's some really nice software that comes with this that gives you that analytics, and it can give you live reporting as well. So you might have a dashboard on your screen that's showing how many calls are in your queue right now, how many people are on calls, who's on a break, where those calls are routed right now, and even down to if you'd run, say, 3 campaigns that month, you could have each campaign shown up as to see who was successful. And that's not historical data, that's live. But yeah, so definitely you'll be able to see any of that reporting through as to, you know, how many calls were lost, for instance, you didn't answer, how many didn't dial back, and how quickly they were answered as well. So good question, Lee, thank you. Just looking there to see if we have any more. So that might be, so while we're just waiting to see if we do get any more questions, I will just move on to, so Steve and the team have been kind enough to put forward a web special for everyone on the webinar. So do you want to tell the team about that, Steve?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so as a thank you for coming along, and we're incredibly grateful for you to do that. We're basically offering for you guys a discount on all the setup fees associated with us setting you up on this solution, and a 10% discount on the RRP of any associated hardware purchases, which can be things like wireless headsets if people don't have them, desk phones if you want them, accessories, and even teleconferencing equipment. Anything that's done at the same time that's associated with the setup, we'll offer you a 10% discount on that. Just mention that you attended this webinar, although I'll probably already know when we're talking about it, and yeah, we'll apply that discount for you.
No, that's fantastic, Stephen. It's a great offer. And I think as well as, if you'd like to know what this all looks like, it's always a lot easier to see it rather than me tell you about it, particularly with my croaky voice. So, I'm sure Steve would love to be able to show you guys on a bit of a demo, and I know the Access 4 team would definitely back you up on that and be able to show you. Adam's just got one late question came in, which said, interested in how number porting from existing carriers work. So good question, Adam. So normally, that's one of the bugbears of the industry. Porting numbers is always painful and difficult and causes a lot of challenges. At Access 4, we've actually got an entire team devoted to porting to make sure that this goes smoothly for our partners. And so we actually take care of that with Steve on your behalf. So we would get you a list of your numbers. We got a porting team that work with the losing carrier and make sure they're attributed to your services for cutover. So, you know, it is one of those things that, you know, the old telcos purposely made it difficult so you don't leave. We've really streamlined this, and we've got a great team to make sure that works smoothly. And that, you know, if you've got, say, 100 number range and you've got all these extensions, well, we just allocate them to your users and teams to make sure that those numbers follow them anywhere. And the great point from there is from then on in, you know, you don't have to worry about it. Wherever they go, that extension follows them. And you don't have to look at forwards or any of that rubbish. And, you know, any of your 1300s, your 1800s, they all come across and stay exactly how they are. So, Steve, over to you for any closing comments before we close off.
Yeah. So I'll basically make contact with everyone that's come along over the next little while. Make sure that if you've got any other follow-up questions that you think of, you can ask me then. And yeah, we'll work with you to hopefully find the best solution for you guys.
Brilliant. And look, I'd like to just thank everyone. I really appreciate Steve for allowing us to present, and it's always great to talk with partners. So thank you very much for your time, and I hope everyone has a lovely rest of their day.
Thanks, Peter.